at what point, does Olynyk punish that matchup? And so you're learning, and I wanted to take it as far as I could so that we have a chance to learn what do we have in Boban. And I think that, to your point, when you say they willed, the game to a win, there is truth to that, in that the lineups and how we had to go big and small, and TJ came in and gave us a lift, and Jimmy was a point guard, and we're still learning. I think it's our fifth game with this group, and it was my determination to come back in this final third and try to figure some stuff out so that we're where we want to be in April.
What did you see out of Boban this first opportunity?
Well, initially, I was always curious about his conditioning. Is he going to be able to sustain whatever period of minutes that I was giving him? And I think I said pre-game, I hope I can go in more like 5-minute clumps, maybe 6 clumps. I'm not worried about if it ends up 30 minutes, but I am the duration. And he kept telling me he was fine, and the game spun out in that first period, and he was really good. And then the game, left, I think, a little bit where it went probably a minute and a half longer than I had hoped. But in general, I thought that, he was really good. There were times that you knew the matchup wasn't favorable, and so we got him out. And then at the end, we tried to use a foul because we had one to get him back in and have some level of rim protection. I thought in general he was very good, and he was our bell ringer tonight.
Brett, you went small at the beginning of the fourth, first with, I believe, Mike was playing center, and then Ben.
Yeah.
What can you guys do without a true rim protector on the floor to, I guess, get stops easier?
Yeah. It's a good question. And my immediate reaction is to try to, I think we have a better chance to keep the game in front of us by switching everything. There's a lot of, like-on-like bodies out there, and I hope that there's not as much needed at the rim. But in general, we miss it. I felt that pain. I felt some level of pain without a rim protector. I think probably my simplest answer, Kyle, is what I said. I feel like, you just hope to keep the game in front of you.
Some of that, the struggles you guys had, just guys are not necessarily on the same page yet with the newness of the rotation, the familiarity, all that. I think
there's a lot of that. I mean, there were some miscues, that they go in for, gut layups. There certainly wasn't a flow even offensively. When you start going small ball, you start really trying to whittle it down into simple. And so I put Jimmy in the middle pick and roll. We tried to put Olynyk in that as much as we could. Then they made the substitution. But it wasn't like we were living in anything sophisticated offensively, which at times is just fine. But to your point, trying to figure it out with that group was hard.
Amir would like a shout out.
Hello, Amir. Yes. My friend Amir.
How important was it at the trade deadline to get a backup center? I know that Harris was the big acquisition. I think you were thinking about getting another backup, something alternative.
We always talked to pick and roll defense. We talked about who ultimately is, the backup five. We were living with Mike and Jonah for a while. And is that sustainable? And, plan B type stuff. And I feel like the backup five and getting Boban in here, to Elton Brand's credit, was just a tremendous move, because I think that trade, when you really study it, with Tobias, because of how young and good he is, and then I think that Mike Scott, who ends up sort of our Wilson Chandler, and Boban, who ends up like slotting in perfectly as the backup, it was an excellent sort of accumulated trade. We really made money, I think, in multiple areas.
Going back to that small lineup, is that something you expect to experiment with and maybe use more, or was that just situational with Olynyk and the struggles guarding him?
I think a little bit of both. I definitely have a desire to do this more. It's easier, the desire is easier satisfied when it's obvious you need it. And so I'm always curious about that. I'm really curious about it. And I think what dictates it for me the most is the matchup. At times if you're losing, you can flip the switch and go small ball. But by and large, I think small ball for me is always kind of generated by matchups. I feel like we do have the ability to get creative with this team that we have, and so perhaps, we'll go that route as this thing unfolds.
TJ really gave you a good spark at the end, but he only played 11 minutes, and most of it came in the fourth quarter. What went into that decision in terms of how he got his minutes?
There was a stage at the end of the third where I was going to take Ben out, and because the third period offensively was poor for us. And then as the game sort of, stretched out, I thought he started playing well, and I thought that with the group that I had on the floor, it would probably be better served to ride him out. And I really thought at the end of that third, when we were trying to claw for points, he carried us. Like, he was significant in that final stretch of just finding buckets. And then to your point, I got Ben out, we brought TJ in, and there was an instant sort of injection of TJ. And I think it's another reminder for all of us how he can come in and without significant minutes just change a game's tempo, and he did that. I thought he was excellent as far as putting his own thumbprint with not a lot of time, especially in the fourth.
Back to that Ben stretch you were just talking about, your jump shot, old school drop step. I mean, it was 8 points in a row there. What did you see from him specifically offensively?
I think the main thing was his disposition, his mentality that he wanted the ball. Rarely when the game is unfolding do you look out on the floor and don't think, oh, he's going to mismatch. He's 6'10". And there's a physicality to him that's sort of, I think, more potent and powerful than others may sort of see on a stat sheet. He's physical and he's big. And I thought that, outside of how he scored, was the thing that stood out the most, is he wanted the ball. He sensed we needed a bucket. No matter who sort of was guarding him, whether it's an elbow or at the post, I put him at the post out of a play that we run. His mentality was as impressive as his finishes to me.
What goes through your mind when you see Boban shoot a floater like he did in the first half?
You know what? When I see him, and it's only been, as I said, 5 games, and we've had a few practices, he actually can shoot a three. Like, when you watch him go to a corner, he can make a corner three. And so when you see him, have the touch that he has at the foul line, when you see him have the touch that he has, with some jump hooks, from time to time when he drops a 14-foot floater, it doesn't catch me off guard. He's really incredibly skilled for a man of his size. And so now the challenge and the decision comes to the defensive side of the game, and especially if they have stretch 5, where's that leave him? But, he's a tremendous person, a tremendous teammate, and just a tremendous acquisition at this stage of the year.
What have you seen from Jimmy when he's had the opportunity to initiate the offense?
Big guard, physical. Every time I see Jimmy play and he gets into these situations, you're just reminded he's just has so much sort of brute force on the game. He's just that physical. And I think that when he can get a shoulder by people, it's over. Like, it's hard to recover on that. When he can't get a shoulder by somebody and he just sort of initiates shoulder on chest, he's still able to create space. He's big enough with his size to see over things and deliver balls to the rim out of pick and rolls. We had more of those type of plays tonight to Boban, than we've had in a long time. And he's just a gifted athlete that's highly competitive, and you see what he can bring to the table, especially as the game unfolds in its crunch time situations. I thought he was really good tonight.
What you guys talking about afterwards?
For me, growing up, it was just cool to play against Dwyane Wade. I remember first season, he hit a big shot against me. They won the game, but just to be on the floor with a legend like that, for me growing up, I used to wear his shoes when it was with Converse, and I think it's just an amazing feeling to be out there with a legend like that.
Do you feel like you had to take on more of a scoring role in the third quarter a little bit? When you guys were struggling a little bit to score, you take on a little bit more responsibility with that?
Yeah, I was just a little frustrated with how the game was going, so I tried to take it in my own hands in terms of just being more aggressive and getting to the rim and scoring.
When you're out there in those small lineups, and you guys are switching everything, does that change your role at all in terms of like rim protection or weak side rotation, or is it just switch what you can?
I think it's, for me, I don't mind playing the 5 at all. I actually kind of like it. Gives me an opportunity to just make plays, defensively make a lot of plays, a lot more plays than someone else. But I enjoy it. I think it's easier for us to move in terms of just the matchups, especially against a team like that. But we lose the rim protection, which is a big loss for us. But at the same time, it's one of the things that we use to our advantage.
What did you think of having boban in there and how he did tonight?
He was great. He was great. Rebounded the ball. He was our leading scorer the first period or second. And he was just doing what he does best. He's a smart player, and I love playing with him.
Anything surprise you about his game?
I think he's just a confident player. He knows what he can do, and doesn't try to go out of the way of what he can't.